The Apple and OpenAI partnership is here, and it's even better than we thought.
Welcome to the All Future podcast, where we talk all things tech, AI, Apple-related news throughout the week. And if you've subscribed to this channel, big appreciation there because we just passed 4,000 subscribers.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, very
Thanks,
exciting.
guys.
Thank you so much. And if you haven't and you enjoy videos like this, consider hitting that subscribe button. Today, we're getting into the new partnership between ChatGPT and Apple, and this comes as they're on the heels of announcing GPT 4o, which, did you watch this event?
I did. This is big stuff. This is big stuff happening. This is an exciting week to talk about Apple, to talk about OpenAI, to talk about LLMs in general, maybe.
Yeah.
As we're recording this, Google I.O. is happening literally simultaneously, so maybe they'll announce Gemini is even better now. Probably not, but cool event. A lot of great demos in it. For me, I think the demos are cool. It's pretty neat. I think there's a couple big headlines for me. One, so the new model for ChatGPT is ChatGPT 4o is how they're kind of pronouncing it. It's like a 4 and the letter O.
Yeah.
They are making that available to even non-paid people now, so anyone can go and test it out and use it, which is a very big difference. Previously to this, if you weren't paying for GPT Plus, you were limited to GPT 3.5. So this is now giving you, you're jumping GPT-4 and you get GPT 4.0. So pretty neat.
So it's good for everyone.
Good for everyone. And it lets you go test this thing out. Because I think this thing really shines when you can push it and test it out. You know, that's what makes it cool. And then on top of that, a Mac app.
Yeah.
Surprising, I think, to a lot of people in a lot of ways. Not only is it a dedicated app for your Mac that runs GPT, but it even has its own shortcut key.
Yeah.
You know, in much the same way that Spotlight Search works now on a Mac, where you hit Command Space, you can do whatever. This is you hit Option Space, and then GPT launches.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I think probably says something about what we're going to be seeing in WWDC.
Definitely.
Where are you at on this, Ryan?
Yeah, that's super interesting. And a lot of people have pointed out, like, wow, can't believe they did this to Microsoft because there's not a Windows app yet.
Yeah.
But apparently GPT or OpenAI said that it's basically just they're going where their users are at. So it's a lot of Mac users that are actually using ChatGPT.
This makes sense, right? Like, come on, you can say all you want about the numbers and how there's so many more PCs in the world than Macs, but the people who are kind of, I don't know, interested in this sort of thing, it's kind of like almost borderline experimental tech, cutting edge tech, that sort of thing. Most of these people are on Macs, so this doesn't surprise me at all. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. And it looks like it's coming soon. It's kind of like rolling out in time.
Yeah.
It's going to be for paid users only for now, and that's the $20 a month tier. And then you will get it, but you said you were able to download it but didn't get access?
Yeah, so I am a paid user, and I have the app, so it let me download the app. But when I go to sign in, it gives me a little message that, it's not available for you yet. And to basically, and to be fair, at the event, they did use the word starting to roll out today, which is, usually implies some kind of staged launch. And I will say, just in general, yesterday, an hour or two after the event, things that are available in the GPT store. So, GPT models that are designed to do specific things were a little buggy and more haywire than normal. So I think they were probably getting slammed with a lot of new users yesterday.
Yeah. So,
and I imagine they probably got flooded with new paid users yesterday that want to try out this app.
I mean, I signed up.
Oh, well, there you go. So hopefully by the time next time we talk about this, hopefully we can actually demo it on the Mac and mess around with it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But seems pretty cool. Seems like it does a lot of interesting things.
Definitely. And it has that kind of integration we've been talking about, I think, to the level where it can search your documents and search that kind of stuff.
That seems, it's somewhat nebulous exactly what it seems like. It can't just straight up see your screen. You have to tell it to look at this image, because it's in the integrated kind of into the OS as an app, it's kind of easy to do that.
Yeah, it's like you click the key command, and then I think you can click screenshot.
Yeah, you're basically screenshotting it, sending a screenshot to the app. So it's a little bit of a workaround. I suspect that at WWDC we're going to see how that's going to disappear, and you are going to be able to give GPT or some kind of OS or some kind of AI system, whatever Apple ends up calling it, just straight access if you want, however. I'm sure there's, in a very Apple way, you'll be able to limit what it can see or how it works. But I think probably Apple was like, okay, guys, you can announce your app today, but let's not talk about deep OS integration until WWDC.
Yeah, for sure. It was a very interesting event, though. I think a lot of the demos were really focused on the voice assist part of it. To me, this is why I signed up, because I was like, this is her. This is the movie. It's really impressive seeing their demos, and also weird at times seeing them interrupt. But then it's like, oh, that does make sense it's way more natural.
I was texting Ryan about this because I immediately rewatched Her. I was like, it's a movie I've seen several times, great film, and a film we reference here a lot. So I'm like, let me refresh in my memory of how this thing actually works. And I'll tell you something the AI does in Her that this GPT-4o also does. And it has a natural conversation in ways that are actually somewhat detrimental to getting the information out of it, but somehow seems better. I'll use an example. This is in the demo, and you'll experience this if you actually start using GPT-4o. Is that the guy doing the demo is like, oh hey GPT-4 whatever, he's talking to it, and then GPT responds, oh hey, how are you doing today? Looks like you're in one of those cool industrial offices. How's that going? So it's like, he didn't ask it where to say where he was or anything like that. It just started it literally was starting small talk conversation.
Yeah.
And in the film Her, you see the AI do that a lot. In the film Her, it eventually progresses so it's like a true general AI and falls in love or something like this. So that gets crazy. But but it's this kind of weird conversational stuff that again is kind of detrimental to if you actually are trying to get this thing to do something, but makes it a pleasure to use it. It makes it seem so much more natural, Another thing that immediately struck me by, in having, just running 4.0 through its paces yesterday and making it look at images and talk to it and upload, just trying to break it basically, just telling all this crazy stuff. It also sold me on voice being the best way to interact with AI, because it was so much easier for me to just talk to it naturally than to type anything.
Yeah.
And with that interrupt kind of system it has now, where if it does start talking about stuff, you can just start talking back to it and say, forget that. And just, and it immediately picks it up and knows what's going on. Yeah, it seems, I'm like, now I'm starting to be sold on voice, which is another thing in the Her film. Voice is the primary way people are interacting with computers in that film. And I was like, yeah, this is the way to do it. This is the way to do it. I can get stuff done so much faster than typing.
Yeah.
Which is now for most things. That's not true, right? It's easier for me to get what I want quickly by typing with our current kind of just voice command system, Siri or whatever you want to call it. Whereas this is like, oh, I just talk to this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so natural to the point where it's weird. I was playing with it yesterday. And so what level has it already had this voice?
So you could do it. Already could talk to you, right? It was already built in one of these podcasts I co-hosted with Andrew. So not with you. We actually brought up the little voice thing, and we're doing a couple demos with it. The big difference here is the speed.
Yeah.
The natural language has advanced, I think, fairly significantly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And this kind of interrupted and the multimodal integration of the whole thing. It's just like, hey, look at this. Let me start talking about this. It's like it's still in a lot of ways is a beta kind of thing. You could 100% get it to tell you wrong answers. Yeah. It cannot understand what you're saying sometimes. There's a bunch of stuff in it, right?
Yeah.
But it's probably 80% there to being that really cool, true assistant, true AI assistant. And that's very exciting to me. I think that this is oh wow, this is a thing. And it's and not just kind of the kind of, oh, let me show you this gimmick kind of AI. I was like, this is useful AI. It is figuring out things faster and better than I could possibly do it myself, with a knowledge base that would take me years to learn on my own, or hours of deep Google research to figure out,
I did a couple things for it yesterday, or with it yesterday, and at first, like I was mentioning, it's almost weird because I haven't really engaged with that natural of a language thing before. And it's weird because you're sitting there thinking, how do I respond? That's how I'm used to it with...
You want to tell it the right command. You're so used to, you want to talk to it like a robot at first, and you're like...
So you're like, okay, well, how do I word this so they understand? And it's like, no, I can just talk. Yeah. And it's very interesting. And I did 2 tests with it that were very much good use cases. I'm figuring out how to best feed my cat, how much food the cat needs. And it's a mix of wet food and dry food. And I gave it the instructions for each thing. And each thing is, designed. It says feed your cat a half cup of dry food today for the whole day. And it's like, well, I'm mixing in dry food or wet food. How do I get that all? And I gave it all of this information, and it spit out a full detailed answer and gave me all of the work and showed all the work. And then it was accurate. And I did the same thing with a workout plan. I said, like, I'm training for a 5K in 2 weeks. Give me a training plan to get my best time. And it gave a whole detailed thing. And it's like, it's not just that it gives you it. It's like, I've been researching, and that was in line with the research.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, it's very cool. Like, yeah. Again, like, it is. Yes, like, this is, guys, go try this thing. I'm sure most people watching this video have already tried it, but if you haven't, just go download the app. Like, it's and sign up. It's cool. It's really cool. And like I said, like, I think it's to the point now where you can get very useful stuff out of it. Very, very useful stuff out of it. Here's my weird demo I did yesterday.
Ooh, I'm excited.
On my side, I'm doing a lot of art stuff. I'm super into drawing, stuff like that. So. And I was making a spooky lab, like a Dr. Frankenstein style lab in art, right? And I'm trying to get references for that stuff that's in the Frankenstein lab. So I asked GPT, hey, what's in this lab? And then they gave me a kind of like from the passages from the book. They're like, oh, it describes as multiple instruments, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what do they show it like in the movies? And they go, oh, in the movies it has beakers and electric devices. It's like, and then I was like, hey, give me the exact name for all those things. And he goes, okay, here you go. And then like it lists like really bizarre things. So I learned about Tesla coils and Jacob's ladders, all these like weird like old school electrical tools yesterday. And I was like, because I actually tried it, like it's hard to Google that and figure that out, right? Like it's like you would have to like start doing all this weird research. And
that would be a
like
long research project.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, what is that weird thing in the background there? And now it's just like, oh, it's this. Like, here you go. Like, so it cut down my research time significantly.
Yeah.
That's where this stuff shines. Now let's talk about a little bit about the Apple partnership here.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the other big news. We've said enough how cool this thing is. You guys go try it out. It's very cool. But on the news side of the thing, well, one, there's a rumor that kind of the Apple OpenAI deal is closed or close to closed.
Yeah. And that this is kind of the first sign
and this is kind of just the first thing. And maybe that was part of the deal is that OpenAI is like, hey, we'll do this thing with you. Can we announce some of this stuff at our event? I also think it's interesting that OpenAI had their event the day before Google I/O. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, like so if we're thinking about how this stuff is going to integrate into Apple products, you take this capability and don't make it in a standalone app, but just make it built into the camera like we've talked about before, right? Where it's like you can just open the camera app and you're looking at something and maybe there's some kind of SiriPro button or something that you press and you're like, hey, what is this stuff? And it explains what it sees. Or the more complex questions, right, is that you can open it and say, hey, here's a problem I have. How do I fix this?
Yeah.
One of the demos that I saw was the broken bike demo. I don't know if you've seen this thing where, it's the brake chain's broken on the bike. You take a picture, you're talking to GPT and you're like, hey, what's wrong? And they're like, oh, this is broken. And you're like, well, how can I fix it? And it goes, oh, do this, this, and this. So that's cool, real assistant stuff.
Yeah.
And you take that out of an app. I set up Siri on your phone. So sorry about that.
All good.
It's probably going to happen a lot in this video. But it's, like integrate that deep into the actual Apple apps, into the OSs. This thing is awesome. This thing is awesome and way more advanced than what we see right now, because we've seen, say, Copilot, Gemini, kind of built into Google and Microsoft products. I saw someone this morning was talking about the standalone thing coming to Mac first, and they're like, oh, well, Copilot's already on Mac. Here's the thing about Copilot. One, it only is right now GPT-4 at best. A lot of times it defaults to GPT 3.5 based on who knows, like how many like server tokens it's using, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it is nowhere near what this new app, the new GPT Apple app can do, which tells me they're probably looking at a much more integrated experience on the Apple side than we're seeing on the Windows side or what Google is doing on their side of the house.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think seeing it integrated, as you're talking about, is going to be huge because it won't have a cap. I'm assuming it's not going to have a cap.
Apple has to be giving them billions, like literal billions, if it's really going to be that deep level of integration. Because it's going to be just slamming servers, slamming all this stuff, right? And we have this rumor of Apple kind of building their own I think M2 chip powered server farm somewhere specifically for AI. I
Yeah.
don't know if you saw this thing. So maybe that's kind of part of it. It's gonna, it's gonna run the GPT model on these Apple servers at, whatever, some warehouse in Utah or something like that. But Apple had to have just backed up the cash truck, right?
Yeah.
which Apple, one of the few companies that can do that, right? And must have given a great pitch for it too, and said, "Hey, like, we love what you guys are doing. Let's just pour fuel in this fire."
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what it needs. I mean, the 4.0 is going to be really impressive for a lot of people and a lot of free users trying it. But then you reach a daily cap and it's like you can't really dive in further.
Yeah.
I guess you could log into a different account
Yeah.
since it's a free user situation, but it's not going to remember everything from your account. And yeah, I had that experience yesterday. I was like getting super into it, and then I got my cap, and I was like, oh man.
well, it's just lame. Yeah, so like Apple has to figure that out if it's really going to be that integrated into Siri and things like that. And that's the other thing too, is that I think most people who really use AI for work, you need the paid version almost, right? Because if you just want to show people the little tricks it can do, you can be in there free, you can run some tricks and stuff. But if all of a sudden you're in the middle of a project of some type that you're deeply using AI to help you with, you're gonna need a lot of time. You're gonna need that level of usage before you can really do stuff with it.
Basically, seeing these demos just shows how much this is going to be so much better. I mean, this is a million times better than what we're dealing with Siri right now, and getting this integrated.
I thought about this morning on the drive here. I went to hear songs from 1985. I just pick years sometimes, and I say something. I'm like, I want to hear songs from 1985. I tell Siri in the car, like, hey, play these songs. Immediately, the song 1985 for Bowling for Soup starts playing. A great song, but that's not what I meant, right?
Exactly.
And I thought to myself, like, you know what I want to tell it? I want to go, oh no, not that song. I want to hear multiple hits from this year. GPT would understand that immediately. They would have probably understood it from the beginning. Like, it probably wouldn't even played that song, but it would understand that correction, that follow-up, right? That's where this thing really shines.
And then not make the mistake next time.
Exactly. And say, hey, don't do this anymore. And you go, oh, okay, now I know, right? Or you don't even have to tell it. Like, it would learn as it's going that, like, that's what they mean from that. So, like, it's these kind of things that I think are going to, once Apple, which just seems like likely what they're going to do, put this thing in products that literal hundreds of millions of people use, I mean, it's game on for this stuff, right? Like, if people are going to also like integrate this into their lives deeply, I think.
Yeah, and then it just raises the question. We've heard a lot about Apple's own LLM that they're working on to run on device, and then we're seeing how incredibly impressive this is, and this is obviously not on device. Is it able to somehow come to the device, or is Apple saving their own thing for device, and then you're using OpenAI's thing for once it gets past a certain threshold of capability?
Right. Yeah. And I assume that's what it's going to be. I think that's what we're going to see is some kind of split difference there where Apple's going to go, oh, onboard AI for this. And then when you want this more impressive thing, it goes out to the cloud through OpenAI or whatever they end up doing.
Yeah. I think kind of a good example of how it integrates is Shazam, because we have that on our phones where we can just pull down, well, you can ask it, what song is this? And then it's using Shazam automatically, or you can pull down from the top and there's a button right there to listen to the song. But it's fully Shazam. It's not, Apple didn't design this thing. It's just fully integrated.
It's just an integrated app. That's exactly what we're kind of talking about. Like, the app is just built into the system, right?
Yeah. Even though just opening I encourage everyone, just sign up for a free account and use the voice feature. It's so cool.
It's sick. It's really neat. It's a really neat thing to show people. And inevitably, when you go to show someone, that's when it's going to mess up and get something wrong. But it's cool. And again, like all these things, it's really about what these capabilities are, I think, and seeing where this stuff is going.
Yeah.
Not what it is right now. Like, right now, it's not, because the things it can't do right now are really that execution level of it, right? Like, because to use your cat food example, right? Like, the good version of this, which we're probably going to have within a year, maybe if less, is after all that explanation, you're like, hey, cool, well, go ahead and order that for me.
Yeah.
Right? And he goes, okay, no problem. This other thing you see again in the movie Her a lot, which Altman actually referenced the film like in a tweet, I think, right? So
just a little scary.
But it's one of those examples of like kind of art being influenced by technology, and then that art goes back around and influences technology, you know? Like, so it's a kind of circular thing. But what you'll see is kind of the it's that level of, hey, here's what's going on for you, stuff I think you need to know now coming from the AI. and then you being able to tell the AI to make actions based on those things. Hey, yeah, have that sent to me. Hey, yeah, reply to that. Hey, yeah, do the, like it's not just informational heading towards you, it's actions coming out of it.
Yeah.
That's what I really hope we see at WWDC. And that's the kind of thing that this Apple AI, OpenAI partnership could bring us that I think would, again, do what Apple's trying to do here, move units of phones, right?
Yeah. They've done a really good job. I mean, already this GPT app, I mean, it's been around, but giving this to people and then they can integrate it, it's already that app replacement we've talked about, that you don't need the Rapid R1, you don't need the Humane Pin.
Yeah.
This is already
this thing is crushing
light years better than those devices.
Yeah.
I like a product. I like going out there and making a product.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not too confident
sorry,
that those are
sorry,
gonna...
Humane Pin guys. Like your stuff looked really cool, but this is this is actual practical and better. It's not just like, oh, it's Apple and they've been around so people like it better, or it's OpenAI so people like it better. This thing is just works. It actually works in a practical way.
And they're using iPhones in all of their demos.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is that just common? They're always using iPhones, or is that also maybe an intentional sign?
I imagine it all works better on an iPhone. I don't know. I've never actually used the ChatGPT on it, but on an Android device. But it's something I've said here many times. Go to any of these tech campuses. Go to any of these places. Everyone's got an iPhone. Everyone in Google has an iPhone. Everyone in Microsoft has an iPhone. Right? It's rare. And look, you'll see the one random dude with a Pixel, and he's always like the software engineer nerd or something like that. Which shout out to those guys. I'm a big fan of software engineer nerds. Right?
We love them.
But like kind of the people they're gonna put like as the kind of marketing leads of things, all those people are always using iPhones, right?
Yeah,
so that's just kind of how it works. But there's no reason this couldn't work on the Android side. All this stuff could work on Windows. There's nothing Apple specific about these things working. It's just I think Apple is the company that's going to, or evidently has, made a good deal with OpenAI and paid them a lot of money to really integrate this in a cool way first.
Yeah.
And no one can shift kind of the tide of what's cool and what people want like Apple does, for better or worse. Sometimes that's not good. I.e., we don't have headphone jacks on anything anymore, but sometimes that's good, right? And you can push things forward in a way that only Apple can. And I hope that's what's about to happen.
Yeah, me too.